And late today, Trump told reporters he spoke with Obama on the phone and the two had a very nice conversation. For more on all this, I'm joined by NBC's Hallie Jackson in Palm Beach, Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson, and Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on the Salem Radio Network. Both are MSNBC political analysts. And Hugh, what do you make of how Donald Trump, again, I say it almost is for Donald Trump, it almost is par for the course to be airing all of this and then, you know, in the morning to be saying one thing and then sort of to swing by the end of the day. I guess it's not the first time we've asked the question. I mean, is that presidential the way you see it?
Well, he's not the only one who's upset with President Obama. Speaker Ryan tweeted out today that Secretary Kerry lacked the credibility to make his 72-minute attack on Israel today. And so in the background is not only the President Obama, David Axelrod, very interesting conversation that was part of the delegitimization of the Trump win. That's what got under President-elect's skin, I think. But there's this massive change in American policy. It's radical. It's actually the most significant thing that I think has happened in a transition in my lifetime in terms of a major departure from existing policy and throwing our ally into a great fury of back and forth. So I think when he said we were expecting a calm transition, when he said that, no one was expecting President Obama and Secretary Kerry and Ben Rhodes to throw the American-Israel situation into a complete dustpan and set it on fire. And it is right now on fire. And that is not smooth. And I agree with Speaker Ryan. That resolution at the UN, Steve, was a very bad idea. I agree with Donald Trump. It was a very bad idea. And it has turned over quite a lot of controversy.
Well, let's stay on that. Back in 2008, 3 days after he was elected for the first time, then President-elect Barack Obama declined to weigh in on a foreign policy issue. He said the United States only has one president at a time. Take a look.
Senator, for the first time since the Iranian Revolution, a president of Iran sent a congratulations note to a new U.S. president. I'm wondering if, first of all, if you responded to President Ahmadinejad's note of congratulations.
I will be reviewing the letter from President Ahmadinejad, and we will respond appropriately. It's only been 3 days since the election. I have to reiterate once again that we only have one president at a time, and I want to be very careful that we are sending the right signals to the world as a whole that I am not the president, and I won't be until January 20th.
Obviously, it's a very different public message President-elect Barack Obama was sending 8 years ago than we're hearing from President-elect Donald Trump right now. But Eugene Robinson, what about the point Hugh Hewitt makes? This is a two-way street, isn't it? I mean, you've got Barack Obama, the outgoing president. He knows he's out January 20th, knows there's a new administration coming in. This is a major shift, what the Obama administration did when it comes to Israel, when it comes to not vetoing that resolution. There is, that almost does invite public disagreement, maybe from a successor of a different party, doesn't it?
Well, I think the administration probably felt it was that important. This is hardly the first U.S. administration to be critical of Israeli settlement policy. In fact, every U.S. administration since 1967 has been critical of Israeli settlement policy. And this is, in that sense, a continuation of the view that it has been held, although admittedly it was done in a way that could not help but get the attention of the Israeli government and the attention of the world. You know, my comment on what Secretary Kerry said today and on the action itself is that it just seems to me rather late. Not in terms of the transition, just in terms of the situation on the ground in Israel and the occupied territories. It seems to me that the day that we could actually talk about a realistic two-state settlement is probably gone.
Yeah, and Hallie Jackson, I'm curious, in Trump world, how they're interpreting all of this, whether it's the resolution here, the UN resolution dealing with Israel, whether it's the actions that President Obama is suggesting, promising he's going to take when it comes to Russia, ordering the investigation. He wants answers on what exactly happened before he leaves office. It does seem like Barack Obama is very mindful of who his successor is and of trying to get certain things on the record before he leaves office on January 20th.
It's an interesting point, Steve. You played that soundbite from, I believe it was Chris Collins just a couple of minutes ago, talking about his concerns with how this transition is going. I will tell you that I think other reports from the ground reflect that on the sort of staff level, the transition is sort of proceeding as it typically would. What is a little bit, maybe not atypical, but notable in this situation are the steps that the Obama administration is taking to try to put in some of these policies and procedures in place so that they either cannot be rolled back or to do them now so that they cannot be undone by President-elect Trump once he takes office on January 20th. That has certainly caught the attention, of course, of members of the Trump transition team. I think that at this point, the idea of one president at a time, while it has been precedent for a long time for American presidents, is something that Donald Trump has demonstrated through his words and his actions that is less important to him, less of a priority to him. And I think that was illustrated very forcefully in his tweets just today to Benjamin Netanyahu, talking about Israel, saying, stay strong, Israel. You know, January 20th is just around the corner, sending this very deliberate message to the prime minister, who, by the way, then wrote back and mentioned in his tweet Donald Trump's children, Don Jr. and Ivanka Trump. Don Jr., of course, expected to take over the business and not be involved in the administration from a policy perspective at all. So I think that when you look at sort of big picture, how the Trump team is feeling about this, I think they understand there are 23 days left and that they expect on January 20th with the Republican Congress, with President-elect Trump then being president and in office, they will move very quickly to try to be an antidote, if you will, to some of what President Obama is putting in place.
And Hugh Hewitt, I'm just wondering, obviously you are a critic of what the administration has done here with the United Nations when it comes to Israel. You have Donald Trump out there saying, look, it's all different 3 weeks from now. As somebody who does not like what the Obama administration did last week with that resolution, do you feel that they have put something permanent in place, something permanent on the record by getting that UN Security Council resolution that Donald Trump will not be able to undo when he becomes president? Or do you feel, hey, fine, 3 weeks from now, I get somebody in there with a different perspective on this, this all becomes a momentary thing?
Well, the reason this matters is because it is a permanent resolution. It will have to be reversed by the Security Council and the United Nations, if at all, and I think it may lead to the defunding of the UN. It's a major deal. Up until now, Steve, the only thing of consequence I can ever remember happening during the transition was Bill Clinton's pardon of Mark Rich. Now we have the criminalization of 600 Israelis living on the West Bank, and especially the criminalization of the Western Wall being defined as occupied territory by this. So Resolution 2334 is a radical step. I listened to Secretary Kerry today trying to diminish it, but the difference between what he was pointing to is the fact that Hamas now controls Gaza and that the Fatah has gone radical and President Abbas is president for life. And I thought the Kerry speech was really so over the top that I'm agreeing with Chuck Schumer and with other Democrats like Steny Hoyer. They've gone off the edge on this, and that's just not usual, and it's deeply damaging to our ally. And I don't think it can be reversed in the way that a lot of these regulations and executive order, you blow them off in the first week. But you can't change this. They've done some real damage, and I think part of it was a diversion from the catastrophe of Syria, a diversion from the red line that was not enforced, a diversion from the JVs that are still in Mosul, a diversion from leading from behind. I think that's what this is all about.
All right, Hugh Hewitt, Eugene Robinson, Hallie Jackson, thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.